All right, is it possible to buy your dream home in today's economy? Will we find out as we conclude in Common Sense Financial Week with home buying and real estate tips from the Fiscal Firecrackers. Welcome back, Donna Kachon and Susan Yeagney.
Susan, Dahlia, welcome back.
Thank you.
So what do we need to know? In today's economy, we hear these reports coming out that seem dire. Is it possible for people to achieve home ownership right now?
Yeah, well, as we all know, the past couple of years have been like living in a washing machine, right? I mean, so many ups and downs, but despite the craziness, we're gonna tell you how you can buy a home today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the goal is to own a home, and ideally if you're gonna stay in a place 3 years or longer, but we still believe in real estate. Here's why. Diversifies your portfolio, you actually own equity, and you have an asset that is tangible, and you're building generational wealth at every income level.
And you can't have a great weekend in a mutual fund.
That's right. And generational wealth doesn't come by sliding it under a mattress.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, that was really profound, Mark. I don't even know.
I was gonna say something else, but I was having a great weekend.
That was really
Yeah.
cool. So what are people looking to see if they're crunching their numbers at home? What do they need to see for it to make sense for them to buy?
So I love that you're starting with the numbers.
Yes.
That's my favorite part.
Oh, you're titillated by numbers.
Yes, she likes numbers.
So am I.
Yes, yes.
You have to start with the numbers. So say you're looking at a home that costs $500,000.
Okay.
You put 20% down, which is really the minimum,
Thank
and that's
you.
$100,000.
He's doing the math for me because I...
A 30-year fixed rate mortgage right now is 7.3% on average.
Okay.
So that'll give you a monthly payment of $3,100.
Okay.
So that's the number that you need to figure out, what is my number? And the best way to do that is through running a mortgage calculator, such as mortgagecalculator.org or bankrate.com.
And
So
don't-
those are real things.
Those are real things. And don't
Yeah.
do what I did. I use my Fitbit, and you cannot
Don't do that.
get
Right.
mortgage
But a
numbers on the
30-year,
Fitbit.
that's a long time. Is that,
Yeah.
do most people own homes for 30 years? What's the
I
average?
would say very few people own one home for 30 years, but that is the standard mortgage rate. Yes,
Got it.
mortgage term.
Okay.
So, so we calculate it all up. How do we know how much we can spend?
What do you put aside?
No, that's a great question. We're going to cover both. So first, your magic number is 30%. You want to make sure that your monthly mortgage payment is no more than 30% of your take-home income or your paycheck.
Take home.
Take home, exactly. That's the real number.
Okay, that's the real
Right.
number
Right.
of what
After
you can
taxes.
afford.
Exactly.
Right.
And then at the same time, you want to take 3 months of your payments, ideally, and put that away into a high-yield online savings account.
Yeah, one thing that Galia taught me too is make sure you're not house poor. So have a little kitty set aside, a slush fund for fun stuff in your life. So for me, I wrote down I love a Dr. Pepper lip balm. You know, I like a boba tea that's brown sugar flavored. I like taking online juggling classes on Saturdays. So I make sure I'm
These
not...
are your extravagances.
These are my... This is me being
all at the
crazy.
same, all at the same time, doing all those things at the same time?
I think I juggle a lot, Mark.
Yeah.
Next, the steps to buying a home. We're back with the Fiscal Firecrackers, Galia and Susan. Now listen, we're talking a lot about buying a home. If somebody does decide to go for it, what are their next steps? They call the bank? They call
Their mom?
their mom?
Mom, yes.
God.
So God.
Yes, God?
So the first thing is run a credit report on yourself just to make sure you don't have mistakes on your report and your FICO score is at least 700. And this is ideal if you have little credit card debt and pay your bills on time.
Okay. And when your FICO score, like, what are the things that people should look out for? Like, is it identity theft? Is it, you know, having too many credit cards, that kind of thing?
Well, you just want to make sure there's no mistakes so that they're saying that you owe money that you don't, and fix those mistakes before you apply for the mortgage.
Yeah, and one thing you talk about too is that when you're buying a home, it's not the time to open up 6 new credit cards and buy a pinball machine on each.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
They don't want to see that.
You go to the bank and then you have your everything is in order. Then what happens? How do you borrow money? Do you get approved?
Well, that's a great question. So the first thing you actually want to do when you go to the bank before you even look for a home is get pre-approved. You can also do this through a mortgage broker.
Okay.
So they tell you how much you can afford and how much they're going to lend you.
And do you compare those? Do you try to go to more than one and figure out what's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And does that cost you money to do that?
It shouldn't cost you anything.
It shouldn't cost you anything.
But we talked about on our podcast, if you're pre-approved for a house, why are you not pre-approving people for dating? you know?
That's a very
Right?
actually great point.
Because before I would go to Applebee's and meet some guy I met on Bumble, I'd like to know that he has a vaccine card. I'd like to know his blood type. I want to make sure he's into Dolly Parton.
You want to make sure he's not already married.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
Title search.
All of this and so much more is on the Fiscal Firecracker weekly podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
You're always so knowledgeable. And I'm sure that you wrote all that down.
I did.
Yeah, good. Okay. We'll be right back.